This is Miriam Raftery, editor of East County Magazine, and I'm here today in Campo, California. Each year, the community brings its colorful Western history and heritage to life during Campo Day. Along with Kylie Dees and Matthew Minash, we'll be taking you on an exciting virtual tour.
My name is Ray Fleury. I'm the events coordinator for the Lockett Event Equestrian Facility, and I am also the chairperson for the Camp Lockett Roundup. I've been working with the facility for probably about 4 years.
Camp Lockett was once a military fort and today is an equestrian center. Can you share some highlights of its history?
So Camp Lockett was actually the last home of the United States Cavalry. It was also a home of the Buffalo Soldiers, which were the Black Cavalry Unit.
Here today with Trooper Jay Collins, and he is with the Buffalo Soldier Mounted Cavalry.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us about the history of the Buffalo Soldier?
History here in Campo started way back probably in 1939, 1940, just prior to World War II. The story behind the Buffalo Soldiers is in 1866, Congress decided that since the Civil War was ended, we no longer had this North against South. We never had this conflict. It's over. But we need to decrease the size of the U.S. military. However, what we want to do is we want to increase the size of the cavalry and infantry. We have a lot of European settlers coming into the United States, settling on Indian land, and there's conflicts. So we want to put the new cavalry units, new infantry units out on the western frontier to make things peaceful. And when the Buffalo Soldiers first came on board, they were considered soldiers, okay, or troopers. We call them troopers. But it was the first time where a black man, after the end of slavery, has any kind of authority, okay? And that was huge. But there were many, many soldiers who were not literate enough to speak. Okay, so there were speaking classes. They were taught how to read, how to write, how to do math, and that was one of the draws for the U.S. Army. You know, you come in, join the Army, you'll get paid $13 a month. Learn to ride a horse, get a uniform, we'll feed you. If you get sick, we'll take care of you. But $13 a month for a former slave who never had any money, huge. Huge.
What does Camp Lockett have to offer for visitors who want to learn more about the local history?
So we have a small museum dedicated to the Buffalo Soldiers and the U.S. Army Cavalry, and it was actually the home of the commander of the military base here in the 40s.
How is Camp Lockett celebrating Campo Day?
So Camp Lockett is celebrating Campo Days with the equestrian facility. Since this was actually a cavalry and the cavalry was here, we have an obstacle course for a horse obstacle course. We have barrel racing, and we have a team branding competition.
Can you explain the event Roundup and the activities going on with it?
So Roundup is the Camp Lockett's Event Equestrian Facility's major fundraiser. All the proceeds from today go to back into the community after expenses. We give high school scholarships. We give back to other community organizations.
What types of equestrian activities are offered throughout the year?
So throughout the year, we offer organized trail rides. You can become a member of our facility and use the marinas at any time you like. We do gymkhanas, which is basically games on horseback, and we have an roping later this month.
I'm Larry Johnson. I'm the president of the Mountain Park Historical Society, located in the Stone Store Museum, right down at the junction of Highway 94, the railroad, the creek, and Forest Gate Road. We happen to be here today because we're giving stagecoach rides as a fundraiser, and so we're now in the location of the Camp Lockett Event and Equestrian Facility. What we're doing here is, in a little while you'll see a stagecoach come driving by. And that stagecoach is typical of the ones that used to be out west, typical of the Wells Fargo stage or other types that ran. And so this is one pulled by two draft Belgian horses, and it's about a 15-minute ride that we're giving today.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Gaskell Brothers and the historic Campo gunfight?
The Kumeyaay Indians lived in this area for thousands of years, and obviously the climate changed over a long period of time, but Campo happens to be located right at the lower end of about 72 square mile watershed that's fed by Campo Creek. Campo Creek comes out of it, and it happens to come right by the stone store. And when people were looking for a place to settle, the Indians found it because there was water there. When there was water nowhere else, they could find water there. There was acorns. There was lots of vegetation and so forth. So it was a good place to live. The Gaskell Brothers gunfight, that took place in 1875, December 4th. And it again was a result of the settling of California and people traveling through it. The U.S. had taken over this part of California from Mexico. So there were lots of people living here before. It was Mexican territory. And so some of those citizens didn't like having their property taken away or not being legit. So they became sort of outlaws and so forth up and down the coast. And one group of them had been murdering and robbing and come down the coast and settled in Tecate, California. And they decided that they were going to come out and rob the store, which was a wooden store at that time, over the creek. And so they made plans. They had wagons set up. They had their Rough Riders coming in, and they came in, and the Gaskells had warning about 2 weeks earlier that they were coming, but they didn't show up. So they had let their guard down a little bit. They did have a few weapons stored around in various locations, and then suddenly one day, in comes two guys wanting to buy some property or have something shown to them. So they asked him to show him a rope. I think it was a rope that they asked for, and he turned around to get it, and one of the gangsters shot him right through the chest, through the back, through the upper part of the lung, and he fell down on the floor. And the Mexican bandits thought, well, he's dead, so they started going out. This guy jumps up and fires at one of them, and then runs out, and his brother, who was out in the blacksmith shop, heard the ruckus, and he grabbed a gun, and so all hell broke loose. Everybody was firing at everybody, a few getting hit. It ended up with two being wounded and crawling off into the brush, three heading off towards Campbell, one of them seriously wounded in the neck, and that was about the group. So the one headed off towards Campbell, I think he died of his wounds. The remaining two escaped and were not found. The two that had crawled up in Campo up into the brush came in from the cold, because it was December and it's cold, and they put him in jail, and not a very good jail, I guess, and posted guard. And then that night, some local cowboys thought that they would take justice in their hands, and they came along, took the two bandits out, took them down to an oak tree with one rope that they tried to buy in the store, I guess, hung both of them from a single rope, is what I understand. And then I guess they buried them the next day. The sheriff came up and did an inquest, and I guess they could never really find out who really did it, and they probably didn't try very hard. But anyway, because Campo was on that main road, there was a telegraph line that ran through here. And telegraph stories were going into the San Diego Union every hour or so, and so stories are in there. You can go and research that today and find out what was being said there. So it was a big shootout, probably bigger than those folks alive.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, my name's Martin Kastecker. I've been with the museum since 2013. I'm currently sitting on the board as the secretary, but I've been the vice president in the past. I do a lot of work in the equipment shop, fixing up old trains, and also helping out on the excursion train, running it up and down the track.
Okay. And the railway used to be called the Impossible Railway. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, the Impossible Railway or railroad comes from a long history of this railroad just being a very difficult one to operate. From the time it was completed in the late 19-teens all the way up even through today, there have been lots of challenges. Primarily really harsh weather conditions, difficulty maintaining track. There's lots and lots and lots of bridges and tunnels that need constant attention, and really because of that, it's always been known as the Impossible Railroad for that reason.
How long has the museum actually been active, and actually been around.
Sure. Yeah, well, the museum has been in existence since the mid-1950s. It started off with a group of San Diego rail fans that were just interested in preserving San Diego's railroad history. Over the years, we began acquiring equipment and eventually made the move here to Campo in the early 1980s. And we've been running trains here and interpreting San Diego's history ever since.
What does the museum have to offer year-round?
Sure. Well, we have a lot of stuff going on here all the time. You know, our regular excursion train runs Saturdays and Sundays, depending on the season. Coming up here in the summer, we'll have our sunset special trains, which will take in the lovely late afternoon sunsets here starting in June. Otherwise, we just finished up with our Easter event that we call the Bunny Trains, where the Easter Bunny gets to visit with everybody. We have an Easter egg hunt here in our display building. We also have a special event for Halloween, which is my personal favorite, where we decorate the display area here all spooky with a pumpkin patch and 2 haunted trains that you can walk through. And then the big one for the year, of course, is Christmas time. We have our Christmas train we call the North Pole Limited, and that's one of the biggest revenue generators for us, but it's the whole shebang with the hot chocolate and the cookies and elves and a visit with Santa and the whole bit. So between that, it keeps us quite busy.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the train museum?
Sure. Well, this museum is unique in the fact that it's run entirely by volunteers. Everybody from the top of the board down to the people running our train, the people who fix up our exhibits and displays. All of that is all volunteer. So this dedicated base has been here working to preserve our history and to make sure that people have a fun place to go to experience railroading from the past. And we really couldn't do it without our volunteers.
Okay, and what are your guys' operating hours?
Yeah, we're generally open Saturdays and Sundays from 9 to 5. Usually have train rides during the day, which varies based on the time of year, but all of those train ride times and our operating hours are all available on our website at psrm.org.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed your virtual tour of Campo, California, which, as you can see, is working hard to keep its history alive. You can learn more and plan a visit at visitcampo.com.